Ladies and gentlemen, it's week 10. It's the final week we've got of the SPL. We've got our second to last day here on this Saturday. My name, of course, is F. Joined here by Hinduman, and we're going to be taking you into one of the more high-profile matches this weekend. It's going to be Paradigm versus Epsilon.
And their whole job today is try and go to the World Championships, which tickets are on sale right now, and there's going to be $1 million on the line.
It's a whole lot of money, and of course, this is the second step. Right now, teams are finishing up their proper SPL season, which of course will feed directly into what we call the Super Regionals. We're going to take 16 teams, 8 from each region, and boil them down to 12. That'll come up in November, and then we'll see those 12 teams turn into 5, which will go on to the Smite World Championship.
Now on to today's game. Obviously, it's going to be Epsilon up against Paradigm. Paradigm, well, they're looking for the second seed position, but at the moment, they have to win 2-0 to actually have a shot at that. They're going to have to rely on other games as well here, Tom.
And it's just a shot, as you said. Paradigm, they've got to win 2-0 here and hope that Fnatic doesn't win a single game tomorrow, which, if you've been paying attention to the season, that's a big wish that Paradigm's going to have to pay attention to. So today, their opposition will be the #1 team in Europe. It'll be Team Epsilon, who right now are sitting pretty at 25 wins and only a single loss.
And I'm pretty sure they're going to want to go into the Super Regionals with only dropping one single game up against Fnatic. They won't want to go away here and losing 2 games against Paradigm, or even 1 game against Paradigm. On top of that, Paradigm and Fnatic are scrim partners. So Paradigm, Fnatic, Epsilon and Fnatic are scrim partners. So Epsilon definitely going to want to make sure their #1 best friends are in the other side of the bracket A. B, they get a bye so they can use their scrim partnership and not have to worry about facing each other whatsoever.
And as we said, it's all about Paradigm trying to get this 2-0, but that's going to be pretty tough. The last time Epsilon saw a loss was about a month ago. It was September 27th when Epsilon last lost to Fnatic, again, one of the top teams here. So Paradigm has a tall order ahead of them if they want to go ahead in 2-0 here. Giannis, the first man out from the squad on the left.
Now, if Epsilon do win game 1, it's all null and void. Paradigm will finish 3rd in the SPL this split. Epsilon will obviously still finish 1st, but I expect that even if we do see a 1-0 go in the favor of Epsilon at the start of this one, Paradigm will still play their hearts out because they'll be wanting the practice more than anything else.
Exactly. You can scrim all you want, but ask any professional player of any game, and there's a vastly different situation of playing on a proper stage such as the SPL or even more so LAN than just scrims, which really don't have any consequence.
Now, Zeus being banned out there, it's something that we saw a couple of games from London Conspiracy and the Boys of Justice picking this got up. A lot of people realizing the potential Zeus has. Early game, very, very strong in terms of damage potential. For me, he's like the magical version of a Muzen Cobb right now, where he does a lot of damage. It's bigger AoE, but if he gets caught, the only way out of that is to fight.
We used to see Zeus picked up specifically by Cloud9 in the past, but usually in a protect all composition. With the new changes to Zeus's kit, does he still need that level of protection?
Even more so, because he's not got any further escapes. Before he had a little bit of movement speed on his 2, but now he doesn't even have that to his name. So taking that away increased his damage. These picks and bans though is what I'm expecting. So these bans at least are what I'm expecting. I'm wondering if he's going to be Neith or we're going to see a Sun Wukong pick as first here, because both of those are priority picks, I feel, in this matchup.
Paradigm loves to go the Neith. Bear in mind that Lawbster here, so Zeros tends to play Neith almost, I would say, 8 times out of 10. And Zeros, of course, the mid laner for Fnatic. Paradigm, however, they will pick the first pick Neith, and Lawbster will play the Hunter in the mid lane, not quite as much as Zeros, but almost as much.
But he also plays Ul as well. I mean, Lawbster mixed it up a little bit in terms of his Hunters, and that'd be very safe. The only worry I had was Thor gets through and Sun Wukong get through, which Epsilon could look to pick both of these up here. And if they go for both, this is a great starting lineup, especially against a Neith in the mid, potentially, because Thor here, dunk down, followed by the wall, you can end a Neith's life before she can even get the backflip off.
Pretty much. Neith is relatively safe as far as Hunters go, but at the end of the day, that backflip is so predictable. So if you get in there beforehand and know where, and see where she reacts to, it's pretty much an easy pickoff. The Ram will confirm pretty much that we'll see the mid Neith.
Precisely, it's going to be Ram in the duo lane for Funballer there. Don't see it going any other way. So Neith will be in the mid lane. Gave the hand away a little bit about where that flex is going to go, but I think that's more focused, and they want the priority Hunter for Funballer here as well. Was the big reason they didn't want to see that one going over to emilitoo potentially.
Cabrakan.
Well, we've seen a couple of jungle games out of QvoFred this season, and Days are in the jungle as well. That both of these two have been running it backwards and forwards. High CC, burst damage pretty good. Some recent buffs that have helped him out too.
Yeah, Cabrakan is a nice tanky jungler. Think Ymir almost. There's a little bit of control there. Maybe not so much as Ymir with a stun, and a wall, but Cabrakan does have a couple of options as far as controlling the opponent and stuns, and in the same way as Ymir, the Guardian coming out of the jungle, a large burst capability with a couple of his abilities. So Cabrakan going to round out the jungle pick for Paradigm most likely. Epsilon Esports goes ahead, picks up Nuwa for their mid lane. Bans are out. No Freya, says Paradigm. No Hell, says Epsilon.
Nuwa could be flex here. We've seen Dimi run it in the solo lane as well, but with some Wukong on the table, I don't know if we'll see that really go over to iRaffer there. Potentially he could. He runs the Warriors quite happily there, and very aggressive as some Wukong in the laning phase. But Nuwa, pretty good in the mid lane up against a Cabrakan jungle. Blink initiations with the stuns, you can immediately respond with immunity and get to this guy with fire shots.
Similar to Zeus, Xing Tian is a character that just sort of came into the arena, one of the most recently debuted gods coming out of Smite, and he is a powerhouse. Now, if you haven't seen too much of this god, because he has been popular in recent weeks, he's very similar to Ares in the sense that he is a damage-dealing aggressive support.
He is very aggressive, although it depends with him how he's going to be played out. He could be put into the support role, could go solo. We saw that in the last game from the Boys of Justice, tried running that one in the solo lane, and we've seen Dimi run that in the solo lane too a couple of times, so wouldn't be a surprise. Raw pickup for Paradigm. That's probably going to go to Xaliea, I want to say, in the solo lane, which he's got a fantastic Raw. He used to play healers a lot, did Xaliea in the solo lane, and it's a very safe pick. I guess he's doing that because he's not 100% certain where everybody's going to go.
I mean, it's interesting to me here because Rama and Sylvanus are very obviously, in my opinion, going into the long lane. Cabrakan most likely in the jungle, but bear in mind this is Xaliea. We could easily see Ra, Bracken, or Neith in a solo lane for a character like Xaliea.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, all of those. I expect it to go is going to be Ra, though, more than likely, just because of who's going to be jungling for this team. I mean, when you look at it, Cabrakan can jungle, Sylvanus not so much, Ra.
I would almost like to see the solo Neith and the Ra in the mid lane for Lawbster, combining with some of the stuns out of Cabrakan and a long range out of lane Neith ultimate. That could be a high damage combination for Paradigm, so that's interesting in that regard.
I'm a little bit concerned in the composition for Paradigm here because when you look at hard CC from both teams, there's not that much on the side of Paradigm. I think they're actually doubled out by Epsilon CC. When I count down the hard CC abilities of stuns or knockups, just take those two into account, you're looking on the side of Epsilon at having roughly about 8 of those, I believe, and Paradigm's got like 4. So hard CC is an issue. I mean, they've got plenty of soft CC with roots and slows, but is that going to be a big enough impact during team fights to keep them alive with the sustain of the heals that they're looking for? Because they're going for a healing comp with very little hard CC.
Right, well, with the ability of Ra to heal the team and Neith to heal herself and Sylvanus combining with that, Paradigm will be able to come in and out and in and out. So while I'm looking more towards the sieges, the 5-on-4s under a tower. They get a quick pick off of a Neith ultimate and some Cabrakan nonsense, and then they go for the 5-on-4s into the objectives. And then what happens there is they chip away, they get what they can, they fall back, and they sit in 2 heals. And then they do it again where Epsilon doesn't have that ability, so they'll just be able to outlast the opponent, essentially.
Agreed, but like going back to the CCs again, what I feel about it is that Cabrakan's the majority of the hard CC on this team with 2 stuns.
Yeah.
You've got Sylvanus with the ultimate, with the Wrath of Terror, and you've got Lawbster with a World Reaver. That's all the hard CC this team has. There is no additional hard CC. 2 of those are ultimates, which technically means in an engagement, the only 2 hard CCs you've got that are not ultimate reliant is on Cabrakan.
Right.
So it's all going to be down to QvoFred this game to really set things up for them. Burst damage as well. Another issue I see here is that Ra has the burst from the snipes, but he's not going to be involved too much in the fights in the early game, if there's any fights around the mid or the Gold Fury side. And, the other burst they've really got is a World Weaver.
Exactly. I mean, QvoFred by himself is a burst machine, right?
True. They do have the Cabrakan in the jungle if he can get going as well.
So there's a lot of questions on the side of Paradigm, a lot of intricacies and small changes and odd picks, frankly. Epsilon on the other side, almost standard, I would say. You've got the Sun Wukong on the solo lane, one of the more iconic roles going on right now. Thor jungle has forever been a staple of the jungle. Yammyn on that Nuwa mid. I mean, it's a mage in the mid lane, and Nuwa has been very popular as of late. Anhur Hunter, no words to be said. And iRaffer, sure. Xing Tian, newer, a little bit different, but still very, very standard.
Absolutely amazing poke from Trixtank there on that Sylvanus, just going up against the Xing Tian and Anhur early. Really, really nice aggressive play from the duo lane here to try and put the pressure onto this duo. That, let's be honest, Epsilon love to be aggressive, but it's Paradigm are the ones that are forcing them back.
Funball rolls directly into the opposition, puts out a little bit of damage. And right now, Paradigm really running this long lane as far as the duo is concerned. Emilitoo down to about half HP, and if you take a look at his pot situation, he's got one of each left, but not too much as far as anything else in regards to his itemization, as he started off Death Toll and Boots.
Well, rotation from adapting over here, though, with the extension from Paradigm blocking the aggression. They're going to look for Trix. Trix doesn't have any real way to escape this other than a route, and they will bring him down for first blood. Emilitoo gets credit, and he's going for Funballer, who's low on mana.
Gets the knock-up on a Funball, but can't
blocks.
find the angle to get a stun. Strong body blocks at iRaffer, but it's just not enough to claim the life of the Paradigm Hunter. But first blood goes the way of Epsilon. Fantastic start, and that's exactly, I mean, that's textbook Smite. That's how you respond to an enemy being that aggressive.
I agreed, and you try and get an early rotation in. There was no response from Paradigm there. They were busy trying to farm up their jungle, put the pressure on elsewhere, and you can see there as well. You can see that Rafa trying to just zone out and force back experience on Funballer.
Exactly, and we talk about, it's fun, because one of the things that we mention about Smite a lot is the ability to claim a life and do something with that space, do something with that kill. Well, it's 2.5 minutes on the clock right now, Hinduman. We're not exactly going to see a Gold Fury this early, but you know what we can see? A single wave zoned out. Sure, the support's going to come back to the wave now, but those small steps are really what makes these leads turn into mountains.
Agreed. And when we look at the compositions again, I love going back to the way that both these teams have lined themselves up. Paradigm have gone for a big team fight composition here.
Oh, yeah.
However, if you look at the side of Epsilon, very disperse engagements consistently. They can gang multiple different ways with the Thor coming in as well. But their jungle control is very strong with the Anhur, Xing, Tian in tight corridors. Could be very strong for them early game. Anhur, we know, in the Hunter role, early, mid game, very, very strong at controlling the jungle because of that pillar and the impale into walls can make a big impact.
Still looking at this duo lane, just so much action, and it's sort of a powder keg here because a single pull out of Trixtank or a single spin out of iRaffer can just completely change how safe those players are in that lane.
Yeah, for the most part, but at the same time, it's pretty much going to be a farm up until a jungler appears. They can trade backwards and forwards, but neither of them should really die, because both the Hunters technically have escapes out of the situation.
Just like
Sylvanus, with sustain as well, should be okay up against the other 2v2 with the support of his Hunter as well. But with everyone starting to reach level 5 now is where we'll start seeing the impact. iRaffer, though, only level 4 right now, just a little bit off in terms of experience.
Going to ward off on Trixtank.
And
Trix is here.
He's done a good job of hitting level 5 before iRaffer here as well, considering iRaffer helped get the first kill in the game. Trix was the first casualty of war, but he still got more experience.
Yeah, they're all even as far as gold is concerned, but experience, quite a different story. iRaffer's going to jump on top of Trixtank, largely just a zone, so his team can 4-way split those mid camps. It's not as efficient as they would have liked, but denying the other side is really the key.
Sharing his care in the beginning of the game. Remember that one.
QvoFred level 6, so he's looking about on par with his opponent jungler. Gold is pretty much the same, about 100 by way of adapting, but nothing really to talk about in that regard. Junglers have been relatively quiet, so this is sort of what we expect. QvoFred is a character, or Cabrakan is a character that largely he needs to come on. He's early like Yammyn, but how early?
Well, he's like level 4, level 5. He can start
Exactly.
looking for ganks with the blink, which he's just picked up now. So he's got the blink online. The problem is that where is he gonna gank? Because if he blinks in onto some Wukong, the cloud's coming out. If he blinks in onto Yammyn in the mid lane, Nuwa's gonna use fire shards and get out of the danger immediately. So there's two places
I think Yammyn is still where he goes, so the key here is to blink on the opponent and get a quick stun and do some damage. Nuwa's going to go into the fire shards, but you can see on the ground, so the player, while the opponent Nuwa is in the air, you'll see on the ground a circle as to where she is, so as Nuwa comes down to the ground, that's when we'll see QvoFred ultimate, after her tricks are done.
However, if you're going to talk that, bring that one into account, think about what Adapt is going to be doing. His teammate ults. He ults as well, and the moment they go aggressive, Thor's going to be there dunking down. It's a difficult target for Qvo to find a pick there. He's going to have to come duo, which is where he is now. He's going to try and combine and be looking for Emilitoo.
There's the blink, and there's the ultimate. Emilitoo's jump is already down. CC immunity out of the ultimate, but this one looks curtains, and it is. Funball gets it from the sky.
It was a good play from Paradigm, but it did cost him all 3 ults to actually pick him up there. You saw the Desert Fury get used to avoid the stun that originally came out from Cabrakan. Wall was perfect from QvoFred, though, and that's what Paradigm were relying on. What you'll see out of Epsilon, though, they'll know this is the plan from Paradigm now, because Qvo's only really going to find real success over in that dual lane.
Yeah, it's that dual lane. I think I think Yammyn is still an interesting target, but they have to be very wary, as you said, about the Thor coming from the sky. But what we saw over in the left lane is really where QvoFred is going to make his mark for sure. One of the things that I like, if you take away from that, the blink forces the jump, which means now you can ultimate, because that QvoFred ultimate, that Cabrakan ultimate, is very useful and 0% useful if the opponent has a leap.
Big thing is, walls always influence the game in a much different way than a lot of people have realized. You change the actual terrain of the map, it makes such a big impact. That's why in pillars from Anhur, another one, walls from Thor, Yammyn, they all impact the map in so many different ways where avenues that would normally be open have now been closed.
Right. And so once you force that jump away, that's really when everything is on the table, and you can go ahead and toss that wall up.
Now, another thing to mention, we spoke about Xing coming into the meta now, starting to be picked up more. Support role for iRaffer today. His raw, which is one thing that a lot of people don't talk about too much, it's percentage damage, which is cool, but it's also percentage damage reduction. If he hits a whole team in a team fight, say for example Paradigm, who are going to be looking to help it up, that thought Adaption's just gone up and he's looking for tricks.
Trixtank gets berserker barraged on, and Yammyn blows him up with the hit from the minion explosion. Backside is QvoFred. He's all by himself as Funballers ran out of missiles. Ultimate out of Lawbster to stop adapting in his tracks. That'll allow QvoFred to get out safely, but the rotation from Funball's coming. Roll forward onto emilitoo. He's crippled. Not enough damage before emilitoo can get out of there. Here comes iRaffer and Yammyn to serve things up. Lawbster's stuck. Yammyn blows one up. QvoFred on the backside. Lawbster gets met by emilitoo. And this one goes the way of Epsilon. 5 kills in total on the board.
So, the Will Weaver came out at the beginning of that fight from Lawbster. He wasn't looking for the pick on Adaptin. He was looking for the kill on emilitoo. It was very low on HP. What ended up happening, the body block came out, which was beautifully timed from Adaptin. He soaks that. emilitoo got a little bit caught there. He was not intentionally trying to bait into that. He chose the wrong path. The rest of the team disengaged, but Epsilon realized his mistake and rallied to his rescue, turned the fight completely because cooldowns were back up. Great play from Epsilon to turn it.
What I liked the most about emilitoo's play was there, so he gets caught out, right? He gets in some trouble, jumps away, his team responds, and you know how he thanks his team? By sticking in the fight and getting the kill on the backside of the fight.
Just realizing he had the opportunity to come around the back, people wouldn't realize he was going to be involved in the fight anymore, picking up that kill on Funballer, which to be fair they would have found anyway, but getting involved is important, sticking and supporting your team. This is why Epsilon are seen as one of the best teams in Europe now, because of their ability to team fight as a unit and save each other, but not overcommit enough that you end up dying yourself.
Exactly. So emilitoo plays a little dangerously, but winds up in the right column. So the Gold Fury going to be started here by Paradigm. Trixtank starting a little bit of the zone. This is a shaky decision.
They're trying to abuse the ults being down, but Adaptin does have his ultimate, and you're up against the Desert Fury of emilitoo. They do get Gold Fury. Adaptin's in the sky, though. I don't think they'll find anyone. I'm lying. They will.
Right onto Trix. The ultimate knocks 2 of them up, and here comes the rest of Epsilon. Adaptin gets out of there. Dimi picks up 1. QvoFred gets knocked up. Funball raining from the sky. Ultimate out of the sun. Wukong looking for the QvoFred. Strong stun, but the Jingu Bang puts 7 on the board for Epsilon. Lawbster and Funball, 2 hunters underneath the tower as Epsilon are fine. They've taken what they want. They're going to take away the purple buff as well for the dual lane.
I mean, Paradigm got the Gold Fury, but the rotation from Dimi made a big impact for Epsilon again, so they actually managed to trade back very, very well considering they lost the early Gold Fury. Xaliea couldn't rotate. He's only pushed 1 wave into the tower there. There was nothing in the jungle, I believe, for him to steal away there because Adaptin already had speed buff.
Right.
So Xaliea stuck around. He gets a bit of an advantage in terms of wave, but if you look at it, Dimi's rotation was huge, made a bigger impact.
I like the build out of Dimi. We're seeing a Stone of Gaia here. So normally we don't see this item this early, if at all. And one of the big reasons that we're seeing it out of the Sun Wukong, if you're scratching your head saying, we see a lot of Sun Wukong, but not this item so much, is the direct lane opponent. Ra obviously is magical, and Stone of Gaia is one of the better laning items when it comes to sustain against magical healers.
He's not going to be too worried about Ra, for instance, because he can dodge most of the abilities quite easily. It's also the fact you want to itemize against the jungler as well.
Exactly.
Cabrakan in the jungle, magical damage. So itemize accordingly. Double magical against you in the jungle and in the solo lane.
Exactly.
Let's just go for magical defense early on.
Just prevents a lot of the... I mean, Sun Wukong is difficult to gank anyway. By buying that Stone of Gaia, he just says, look, Paradigm, just stay out of my lane. You're not going to do anything to me. And even if you do, I've got the ultimate anyway.
Paradigm at the moment, they're still trying to fight 4v4 over this side, but I don't like their composition for doing that. Their backline is 2 hunters that can semi-peel for themselves, but the front line need to hold.
Surprise invade. Lobster gets knocked against the wall. Left side, here comes iRaffer as well. Adapting from the sky. Adapting picks up 1 on the Lobster. Xing Tian going to pick up 2 and take 2 beads away. Epsilon is content with their stripping of the actives, and they'll walk back into the jungle.
And you can see, like I said about the CC on this team of Epsilon, much stronger than the side of Paradigm. They can use multiple CCs to keep people pinned down. Dimi rotating with Xaliea to mid. Now Xalia's out of position here, has 2 beats to get away from that one. Will walk back into his heal and clear the wave out. But at the moment, Paradigm need to wait and just farm for the time. They got the Gold Fury, but stop trying to fight if they can help it. Ward up, play safe is the game plan for Paradigm. Now wait for the fight, Team 5.
It's the key for Paradigm, but it's tough. Epsilon, with that last engagement, they have just opened. The next couple of minutes are hereby dubbed feeding time. Look at the actives. Everyone, 100+ seconds on these beats. Epsilon can take whatever they want
But there's nothing up now. That's the key. So they can take whatever they want. Well, they can't take towers if you stay at your tower. You've got great wave clear with Ra, with Neith, and with this dual lane. They'll be fine to hold the towers. Ward up your jungle. Make sure you don't get picked on rotations. Look at the ward coverage right now on the map. You can see mainly, for the most part, there's nothing on the side of Paradigm. It's majority, if not all, Epsilon. And that's one of the impacts this is having on the game.
And you'll take a look at what kind of wards are Epsilon. There's 3 sentries on the map coming out of Epsilon. So even if Paradigm decide that they want to, and they have, Epsilon is just going to be able to take away those wards, because
and look at the ward placed. Like, it's all on Trixtank here on the back of Paradigm. He's the one that's trying to get vision for his team. Meanwhile, the rest of them,
team effort,
big team effort. Also, he's placed 8 wards now. Trixtank, he can only have 2 on the map at a time. Says a lot.
Epsilon's been taking out Paradigm's wards, and nobody else on the team really helping out. It's about 1 for everybody outside of Xaliea, which, I mean, to be fair, Xaliea hasn't rotated too much, and I mean, he's generally fine in his lane, so really nothing to shake a stick at as far as the Sol laner is concerned, but the other characters you kind of want to see more vision out of.
Epsilon's just playing their game plan to a T so far. I mean, they've pinned Qvo down to only ganking 1 lane with their picks early on.
With that said, it's still a very close game. I mean, teams separated by 1,000?
Well, the Gold Fury is a big influence in that one as well. That's the big deciding factor, is the Gold Fury. You can see the jump back up on the graph in gold. Experience is a completely different story, though, all Epsilon's way. And that's how it's been since pretty much the beginning of the game when we saw the first blood.
We're seeing a lot of, well, right now we're seeing iRaffer get smoked real quick, but he's able to jump out before the ultimate out of Qvo comes out. Pretty sure he made it before, so that's interesting. Pretty sure he made it out before the ultimate came out.
He did.
But if you looked, as soon as that ultimate came up, Epsilon as a team focused a single rock to bring that down with 3 basics, and then even if iRaffer wasn't able to make it out with that jump, he would have been able to walk out.
Wall double tap on Lawbster. Trix blinks in with a good Wrath of Terror, but there's no follow-up from the team. Nobody else can join the fight. Great play from Trixtank. They just don't have any follow-up. If we saw the Rari mid lane here, the snipe combo would have been beautiful. But I agree with the Neith pick. I'm not upset with the composition, but they need to play it slightly different. Is what I want to say to Paradigm here. They need to just wait for 5v5s. Without having this Raw with them, they're lacking a little bit on the backside for burst potential, A, and B, helping to self-survive the back line.
Paradigm looking to do exactly what they did a couple of minutes ago, but Epsilon this time shows up with 2 people and a 3rd in the wing, so a little bit different scenario for Paradigm. Xaliea makes the rotation from the solo lane. Funball chased out. He's already beneath 50%. iRaffer tosses Trixtank away. Here comes Dimi up in the sky as adapting lands. Not too much damage. Everybody's still pretty healthy except for Trixtank, who's going to find himself put in the ground by adapting. Funball takes shots from the left side. 2 members under the tower will be safe. Lawbster underneath his, he won't. Emilitoo gets the last hit off of Berserker's Barrage assist coming out of the jungle, adapting, and QvoFred once more also finds himself safe. So 2 died on the side of Paradigm, 0 for Epsilon off of Paradigm aggressing onto the gold.
It was more Epsilon that did everything there. Dimi teleported in, went straight onto Funballer. That made the frontliners, which is the front lines, the peel for the team, Sylvanus and Cabrakan, have to turn around and help support him, because what's Neith going to do? She's going to throw out a root, and that's it. If they continue aggressing, there's nothing they can do. They need Cabrakan and Sylvanus to come back and help. If they use that, they channel themselves all back. While they were channeling back to support Funballer, Epsilon, the rest of Epsilon, that was just Dimi.
Yep.
The rest of Epsilon then collapse on them and find them in a really awkward spot that just wins them the fight and potentially the Gold Fury now.
Adapting, doing a little bit of zoning, tries to get Trixtank out of there. Strong ultimate, and that's going to put the Gold Fury on the way of Epsilon still. Trixtank picks up a kill. Yammyn pretty low, about half HP. QvoFred's ult just misses. Fantastic wall out of Adapting created the space necessary for that ult to miss.
Wall on the pillar making good work for Epsilon there, extending their lead. Big stun going to hit onto Trixtank there. Nice impale coming out from emilitoo, but
Strong
the backup from Paradigm is here. They've got good sustain. This is an opportunity for them to try and pressure, but Epsilon are ready for this. Adapting has his ult.
This is pretty much what I was talking about. The ability out of Xaliea to siege these towers is a slight numbers advantage, as it's 5-on-3 with Adapting on the side, so 3.5, I guess. But Ra is able to just drop this heal and just continue the onslaught.
This is the strength. They have to be the aggressors Paradigm here. They have to use the sustain to continue pushing forward. Trixtank and Qvo are the initiators here. The other one has to set to peel, whoever's going to initiate. Wait patiently. Will Weaver comes out, but Adapting's on the back. This is a bad fight by the looks of it for Paradigm.
In trouble is Dimi. He's about 40% HP, but Paradigm all grouped up and thrown into the wall. iRaffer gets 4 combined, and the rest of the team collapse. Adapting picks up 1. Dimi on the chase along with the rest of the team. Funballer is stuck in the middle lane. He's going nowhere. Couple of more basics confirm the kill out of emilitoo onto him. Lawbster picks up a kill on iRaffer, who dies just a little bit too soon. 2 kills on the side of Paradigm for just 1 by way of the support. Epsilon again turns up on the better half of the fight. Paradigm only 4 kills to Epsilon's 12.
And Epsilon made the right decision there as well with that. Paradigm grouped up for heals. They were looking for the Sylvanus wisps as well as the heal from Xaliea. Don't forget, when you drop that heal down from Ra, you have to sit in it. So the team were all trying to get in it to heal themselves up like this. And then they dunked down. They got the big whirlwind off as well from Xing. Big play.
That's the power, though. Paradigm lose that fight hand over foot. Nobody's going to tell you that a 2-for-1 is a strong situation, especially when it's a 2-for-1 by way of the support, right? But Paradigm, by nature of their siege composition, they lose the fight, and then they take the tower anyway. It's supposed to go the other way, Hindu man. You get your kills, and then you get your objectives. Paradigm don't get their kills and take the objective anyway.
Agreed. I mean, that was a good play from Paradigm to realize the opportunity that Epsilon didn't have much else to follow it back up, so they could just put the pressure on. But response from Epsilon in mid lane here. 4 members of the Paradigm here to defend, but all 5 of Epsilon are on the way.
Tower still alive, but just barely, about 10%. A strong push from Epsilon should be able to take this tower back, especially when you combine the Nuon minions able to strip the backdoor protection. So down falls the tower. Rebel goes the way of the red squad. 5 towers remain for Epsilon, 5 towers remain for Paradigm. The only structures fallen so far, besides the Gold Fury, have been the 2 in the mid lane. So a long stretch of road in the middle for these teams to fight over.
And now it's just an opportunity for Epsilon to try and go for the right-hand tier 1 tower
it's
as well.
HP.
You can see the team on the way over here. Should see a 5v5 fight here, but Trix is getting bursted pretty heavily already.
Trix has been focused a lot by the guys on Paradigm, just by way of lack of mobility, I would say. QvoFred here, gonna get picked up by iRaffer, but tossed underneath his own tower. No real combination
That was
of
good
the guys
work.
on Epsilon.
Good work from Lawbster and Funballer there to put the pressure onto iRaffer. iRaffer took a lot of poke there. They could look to try and pick iRaffer off here, and he realized that and tries to jump away. Instead, they're going to go aggressive onto emilitoo, who hung around a little bit too much. Did not expect that burst damage. This is the strength of the comp.
Again, another good wall out of Adapting. He uses the very last of his mana to go ahead and drop the wall. And Thor walls are not always about the stuns. It's about, what did you say before? You change the actual terrain? And that's what he does. He just puts into play, he just puts down the wall. He doesn't get any stuns, but he just prevents that exit being used by the entirety of the team, which saves his team, but it won't save this tower.
A good call from Paradigm. They've got to start chipping away at this golden experience lead that the boys of Epsilon had. The grouping up is where the big play from Paradigm comes from.
Yep.
They've just got to make sure they're the initiators. They can't let Epsilon choose when to initiate. They can't have Dimi run into the back lines early before they're ready to initiate.
Right, because we're seeing a fantastic comeback out of Paradigm every couple of minutes. Let's take a look at the grass real quick. I want to illustrate my point.
Not as much.
You can see
goal-wise, though.
It goes Epsilon's way, and then a slight win at 5 minutes for Paradigm. It goes Epsilon's way, and then there's the Gold Fury at 10 minutes for Paradigm. And then it goes Epsilon's way, and there's another hit.
That's on gold, though, but look at the experience is the big one. 10,000 at 20 minutes in. That is a lot of experience to be behind. That's 5,000 per 10 minutes, and that's 1,000 bonus per player.
And if we just take a look at where is that experience landing, I mean, a lot of it is on to Dimi. He's 2 levels ahead of his opposition in the solo lane, but, I mean, just look at the next one. Adapting versus Qvo. Qvo is trailing by 5 levels in the jungle. He's 0-3-3, which isn't a horrible slash line, but 3-1-8, a little bit more impressive.
Go back
for
right
adapting.
to picks and bans. As they're doing Fire Giant here, go right back to picks and bans. QvoFred only has to be able to gank duo lane. Mid and solo, way too safe. Qvo then gets invaded because Adapting's got free roam because he doesn't have to worry about anything. Here's the fight.
Fire Giant pulled off. We're going to ride along with Funballer. He
up.
puts shots from the sky. Adapting lands on the right side. One spin from iRaffer. And QvoFred's going to fall with the hit from Dimi. Fire Shards comes out of Yammyn. Very low is Adapting. He's going to find his way out as a fantastic screen coming out from the entire team prevents the aggression onto Paradigm. Paradigm
Good
on
fight.
the chase now. Looking
Really
for the
good fight
kills.
for Paradigm.
Dimi pretty low, but hiding in the fog. Now it's gone. The basics coming out of Funball. Aggressive backflip from Lawbster. Epsilon
Fire
won't
Giant.
die, but they'll be chased off of the Fire
Fire
Giant.
Giant now.
Paradigm's full HP.
They have to look for Fire Giant. It's a potential opportunity
Why
for
is he
them.
backing?
I guess they don't feel like they could do it in time. The recalls were already coming through. Dimi didn't have teleport though. They had an opportunity to try the Fire Giant there, but they didn't feel like they could afford to.
Emilitoo is a big part of that too. Emilitoo was full health, virtually full mana. He was about 75% mana, and he was hanging around just past the speed buff. So he would have been able to come in and likely die for it, but a strong knock-up jump and an ultimate out of an Anhur, that's going to take away your objective.
Agreed, but I mean, potentially they had an opportunity for Fire Giant. Instead, they've chosen the option to try and get some extra experience and farm on the map
I think
while
that
they had a
could've gone-
moment's notice.
I think it could have gone either way, honestly.
I'd like to have seen them go for the Fire Giant there, but I think they just respected Epsilon's play and the
Exactly.
ability to come back. Instead, though, Epsilon started the goal for we seen there's a response. There is one coming now. Rafa already throwing out that raw, putting a little bit of damage down on Qvo.
And this is just more security, right? So they make sure that Epsilon makes sure that Paradigm doesn't directly go for the Fire Giant. And then to prevent them from thinking about it, they put the pressure on the left side of the map, which forces Paradigm to respond. Trixtank still being focused.
Big grouping though from both teams. You can see the Desert Fury going off from emilitoo, looking for the pick onto Trixtank. The fire shards come out on the backside. Look at Xaliea under pressure from Adapting. Funballer was in the sky. He's going to turn to Adapting, but immediately jumps out. And meanwhile, Trixtank left to fend off the whole team and falls down 4v5.
4 players on the heel. Epsilon starting Gold Fury. Blink in from Trixtank.
Stunned.
Immediately gets stunned out. Knocks up 3. Still being focused. Down he falls to Dimi. Smack over the top side. Yammyn picks up 1, but wisps from Trixtank pick up the other support. One
wall.
ball gets annihilated by Emilitoo when Adapting.
Double walls.
And Emilitoo follows it up with another kill on a iRaffer or Funball. And all 5 members of Paradigm are dead. All 5 members of Epsilon outside of iRaffer alive. Epsilon pick up the Gold Fury, and they're looking for more.
Walls and pillars, that's all it was about there. They pinned off the exit strategy through that gap in the jungle near the red buff and purple, pinning both the Hunters in there. Where you going to go to? You're going to get hit by Anhur. New War's going to get all the damage off with the fog as well as the shining metal as well. Immediately recall back to base, didn't waste time, and they're going straight for the Fire Giant because they've only got to deal with Qvo for now. Qvo's only level 13.
Keep in mind, Lawbster was the last one to die there, right? So Emilitoo picks up the 2 there. So Lawbster, as far as long-range ability to stop, is going to be rough. QvoFred comes in here, but he's immediately chased out by way of death. Dimi picks up another kill. He's Mr. 505 right now. Fire Giant will fall. All 5 members on Epsilon pick it up. And they're going to keep going aggressive. I'd like to see Dimi back. He's pretty low.
He just wants to pick up extra buffs. He's got teleport as well, so he doesn't mind his team sieging up here a little bit. If they get engaged on, he can immediately come back. Don't forget he's got a fire giant buff as well, so he will continue in regen, as well as Stone of Gaia, so he'll be fine.
QvoFred about to spawn in about 10 seconds. Epsilon going to start the Gold Fury. I wouldn't expect much opposition here from the guys on Paradigm. This is, your opponent has the Fire Giant. Just give him the Gold Fury. Not that much of a concern. Well, Gold Fury is a concern, but it's going to be too much risk versus reward.
I just go back all the way to picks and bans. I feel like Epsilon had an advantage straight from the outset. Their mid lane very safe. Their solo lane very safe. Qvo, an aggressive jungle Cabrakan here, but where's he going to find the picks? He doesn't find any picks, which means, well, the only place he can find picks is duo. So they're able to focus the jungle. Adapting's free to just like look after duo lane, potentially find one of the other 2 lanes that are overextended, and then look to invade with the support of the duo lane that he's going to be looking after anyway. Put the pressure on every opportunity on the map.
Paradigm went for a single shot to defend this tower. Essentially, I mean, a tier 2 tower is a decent amount of gold, but you don't want to die for it. So they position themselves and they catch Adapting out.
Bit of a mistake there from Adapting.
Safely.
Forced his beads then. He's hung around a little bit not necessarily disrespectful, just didn't expect the amount of damage that came out.
Yeah.
Did force his beads, but it's on it's a beats 3 anyway, so it should be available against him. Got to be watching himself a little bit.
So what Paradigm does here, look for a pull or a blink and a Trixtank, and they'll look for what they can get out of it. Blinking on top, 2 stuns out of Yammyn. Shells pop, so Paradigm can withstand a little bit more for the moment, and that's enough for Epsilon.
But look what Trixtank did there. Blinked in, ulted, but the boys of Epsilon spread nicely. They weren't all clumped up. They didn't need to be clumped up, so they chose to stay apart.
Right.
They got the win. They got Blink and Wrath of Terror. They've backed off again for a second because there's no reason to continue the aggression. They got a small win there. They could potentially go and push out right-hand lane, look for the tier 2 tower there. There's no reason to try and take a fight on against Paradigm when their wave clear is very, very strong.
Fire Giant still on the characters for a little while, and so far Epsilon has made good use of it. Epsilon picks up a Gold Fury and a tier 2 tower over on the left-hand side. They look to take another one in the mid lane, but a strong defense out of Paradigm stops that, so 26.5 on the clock. Only 6 kills for Paradigm compared to 19 on the side of Epsilon, and a strong lead out of the #1 seed for Europe, 9,000 gold, as Epsilon sits on 61.8.
Huge amount of a lead for Epsilon right now. And it's really going to come down to the first Phoenix that falls. Paradigm's probably going to have to give up the tier 2 tower in the right-hand lane here, because you can see the grouping. 3 members from Epsilon going to push mid, though, at the same time. I'd give up tier 2 towers, potentially, and look to defend the Phoenix, unless you want to go on this mid-Phoenix, mid lane right now, as it's a 4v4. But you've not got Rafa heals, so you're probably going to have to give it up.
Yeah, Trixtank, that's a situation where maybe you go for a Sylvanus pull, and if you land it, things change. But for the most part, you really don't want to go head-on into that fight. 5 members still with Fire Giant coming down a lane.
Pull.
There's the pull, and not too much follow-up. Emilitoo gets ulted on, but he's CC immune out of the ultimate. Trixtank already going to fall continuously. The first target that Epsilon looks to. QvoFred picked up by adapting as well. Now it's a 5-on-3, and I mean, this is Epsilon's name on the right side of this tower and the entirety of the lane. Funball goes up in the sky more defensively than aggressively, and he can't find the hits. He's going to fall after dealing not too much damage, and Epsilon get the tower, and they'll press on looking for what largely looks like a Phoenix.
And notice what they've done as well. Look at the 2 biggest amount of deaths on the side of Paradigm here, both on Qvo and Trixtank, the front line. The front line has bursted down, and the back line of Paradigm haven't been able to respond at all. Their front line is dying too quickly. They've not managed to get themselves into the game enough, which has meant that the back line, they're consistently having to run away from the aggression as the front line gets bursted because they're just not tanky enough yet.
That's the key. Almost every single time in these engagements, Trixtank is the first one to fall. We repeatedly see it. He's the priority target, and it's interesting because usually the call is don't attack the tank whatsoever. But time and time again, we see adapting come from the sky, get the stun, and just immediately Berserker's Barrage on top of the Sylvanus.
And from that, Epsilon is just able to just walk about, run amok for the most part, and just pressure the lanes, look for the Phoenixes next. I'm trying to work out exactly what the game plan would be for Paradigm now, because their only way to initiate, realistically, is a blink in from Qvo or Trixtank and get a good stun, good AoE stun out of Qvo, potentially, at the same time as a big Wrath of Terror. They're the 2 setups that they've got. Instant response from Epsilon, though, would be beads and use your escapes. Or ultimates to escape. Meanwhile, in mid lane, Xaliea gets aggressed on. Does manage to get away.
The immediate ultimate out of Lawbster. He saw adapting from the get-go, right? Saw the Thor ulting down, and then as soon as Thor lands, he's got a Neith target on him. That means not a lot of charge up, so he's not looking for the damage, he's just looking for the threat of the stun. Trixtank caught out just a little bit. He's going to be 50%. Blinking from Qvo to try and help his friend, but the damage out of emilitoo too strong. Trixtank falls down. Now Lawbster here might have gone too deep. Jump, impale, basic, kill. emilitoo winds up on top while Dimi picks up one on the right side.
And the rest of the boys of Paradigm, they were split in the jungle there. You had Lawbster in the jungle with Qvo and Trixtank. The other 2 were swinging down right lane, trying to push out a minion wave. They got caught in the jungle. They couldn't fight as a 5-man unit. The tanks went down again. Lawbster soon followed as the other 2 had to back away from that. So a second Phoenix to Epsilon.
Yeah, that fight in the jungle was that was the ants go marching one by one. Hurrah, hurrah for Epsilon. I mean, Paradigm just came in. You got a Trixtank, and then when Trixtank's at 10% HP, in comes QvoFred, and then before he realizes that it was a big problem, Lawbster gets caught out as well. So just one by one onto the feeding chain. That is Epsilon adapting very low, but it just doesn't matter when there's no opponents in sight. We're going to see another group backing from Epsilon as they pick up all 3 Phoenixes. and they head back to base.
Now this composition from Paradigm, they're gonna fall down here and take third for the season now. We can see that is inevitable right now with how Epsilon's playing and how good they have a performance in this game. Picks and bans though, we go back to this. I'd like to see Paradigm in game 2 look to try and take away. Don't give them some Wukong Noir if possible, so they don't have the super safe lanes. You can run the Cabrakan jungle if you don't give them super safe lanes where they can play safe against it. On top of that, maybe a different initiator. I don't mind the Cabrakan, but the second initiator, it can't be something like Sylvanus. You're looking for something with more CC. Again, potentially knockup's very big important. Bacchus, another one.
Yep.
Much lower cooldown on that and ways to engage and influence the fight. Would have worked out a little bit better than the Sylvanus, I feel, this game. That could have been a better impact for them.
As far as Epsilon is concerned, on the other side of the coin, they pick up another piece of the Fire Giant. This goes ahead and pushes their lead into another. It's actually very interesting. So right now, 15.6 thousand gold is how much they're leading by. The average win this team has had in the fall split has been by 15.6 thousand gold. So what you can take away from that stat for Epsilon is that they're always careful. They respect their opponent. Right here, they're just going to shred their opponent.
At the isolation, the Trixtank, he went in aggressively, but now the rest of the team on the backside. Epsilon are running amok. This is a rout completely. Epsilon have taken Paradigm apart, and they're going to end the game 1.
Yeah, that's how you seal a game up. So without that Fire Giant, before the mass, you take the Phoenixes, you mass back, and you pick up the Fire Giant, right? Without that mass back and Fire Giant, that fight, maybe Paradigm comes back into it. They have a swing or two. With the Fire Giant, there's no chance. And that's really what Epsilon looks for. They look to just put the enemy in the ground. And here in game number 1, that's exactly what they did against Paradigm.
And it all went in Epsilon's favor. Picks and bans for me was great. The game plan that came out from them, everything went in their favor for the most part. You saw Qvo have to do what he did, which was gank duo lane. It worked for them early. You saw that.
Exactly.
But it wasn't enough because that's the only place he could find kills. He ended up falling behind because Epsilon wanted to evade the jungle. That puts jungler behind, which is your front line as well.
I mean, halfway through that game, Qvo was trailing by 5 levels, and that's going to be a big deal. Started off the way of Epsilon, and that's pretty much the story of the entire game. Emilitoo comes through and just takes out First Blood onto Trixtank. So this is a microcosm of the game for many different reasons. One, Trixtank is the target, and he falls down out of priority decision-making from Epsilon. 2, Emilitoo gets the kill, who we saw a lot of Anhur kills.
And there was 2 things about that play.
And 3, the third point that really illustrates this game, QvoFred came and got the follow-up kill, and I'll expand on that later.
There's 2 things that explain that whole First Blood as well. First of all, the aggression from Paradigm was fantastic in that lane. They controlled that lane early on. If they could have been left alone to continue that, I potentially see that the lane could have gone completely differently. Yeah. Paradigm could have won that one. Adapting's rotation was key to Epsilon coming back into that dual lane and evening things out, but there was no call from Paradigm. Paradigm should have, they either made the call and dual lane didn't listen, or they didn't respect the rotation coming out from adapting. That's what hurt them the most there, really. So here what I was talking about the follow-up kill coming out of QvoFred, that was the story of the entire game for me, and I illustrated it via the graph sort of midway through. We just saw Epsilon leading the game, and then a comeback from Paradigm, and then Epsilon would lead the game in a comeback from Paradigm. And as times went on, those comebacks were few and far between and just not as impactful as Paradigm really needed them to be. So Epsilon, at the end of the day, being in first, being in the lead is just going to wind up because the opponent couldn't come back quick enough. Completely agree, and Yammyn is going to be player of the game for that one. He had a good performance in the mid lane, 7-0, and is it 18, I believe? That's crazy. That's crazy. 18. Wow. Fantastic stuff out of the mid laner, Yammyn, for Epsilon, and who has consistently, strongly made a name for himself this split. I marginally spoke about the jungle control that Epsilon had in the mid-game in terms of what they could bring to the table in jungle fights, because they've got walls to cut off paths of avenues. The Anhur is amazing in the jungle with the Impales and his Pillar as well, but then New War as well. The Fog is going to hit multiple targets, channel themselves through an alleyway. Talk about alleyways here, you'll see some of them. At the same time, he's also sending the Clay minions down into the 5 shards for multiple target stuns. This is what Epsilon loved in the jungle this game. It allowed them to play to their playstyle. I like that play right there. The creativity out of Yammyn's Nuwa is also strong. He gets hit by one shot at a Funball, and he realizes he's very low. So immediately the Fog comes out,
and creates a little bit of invisibility for himself. So Funball can't follow up. Whether or not he has 2 shots, Yammyn doesn't know, but he keeps himself hidden so that he can't get hit by those long-range shots out of the Hunter.
But it's a sign of a good team as well when you see people with very low HP hanging around, supporting each other, looking to continue the aggression because they know they're safe. They know their frontline boys should have them. They've got to be a little bit careful, though, because this is a thing that people should be able to work out about Epsilon going forward, that their teammates will hang around for them. So if they can find people looking at the backside all the time and continuing chasing, we could see sporadic Epsilon be struggling a little bit if teams start working that out, that the teammates will hang around.
A little bit. I mean, for me, it all comes down to the spacing ability out of the player that's going to stick around. That's sort of the calling card for the Hunter and Fnatic reels. It tends to stick around for a long time, but that's how you get the points, that's how you get the kills, and that's how you wind up being a top performer out of Alpha Draft. We see emilitoo on #1, and he was the culprit the most as to what we were just talking about. We consistently saw a 25% HP or less on her, hanging out, dealing out basics.
And he did a good job of what he... I mean, he was the first one on his team to get picked, though. They were looking for the pressure onto him, which is natural.
Right.
But since then, for the most part, his positioning was good. Not necessarily his damage output for me was the important thing. His pillar placements were fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you get out of Anhur. Not only the pillar placements, but the ability and the wherewithal to be aggressive with the jumps. Anhur's leap will, of course, knock the opponent up, and that just creates so much distraction, craziness, and setup for the rest of your team. So jumps into impales at 50% lesser HP, followed up by a strong pillar to slow the enemy from escaping. That's what you want out of an Anhur, not just the damage. Anhur